United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow your head. Our Father in heaven, we're so grateful to be able to gather here tonight to represent those in Wells County. We especially ask that you watch over and take care of those in Texas, the first responders, firefighters, military, everybody that's trying to help find those that are missing. We ask that you continue to watch over all the same folks here locally who keep us safe every day as well. We say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. How you doing, Brandon? Good.
All right, so the first order of business will be to approve our June 3rd minutes. Lisa got those out to everybody. Didn't see where anybody had any questions or comments back to Lisa, so do I have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Thank you, Todd. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vicki. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we're going to start off with the additionals. Circuit Court Emergency Management. We'll go with Circuit Court first. Judge, if you want to come up. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Here tonight to request two different appropriations. One is for psychiatric services. From time to time, the court will encounter defendants who are in need of being evaluated to determine whether or not they're competent to stand trial. It doesn't come up with any kind of regularity, it just happens. We've happened to have a couple over the last couple of years. One of them, I think, started us the year behind, if I'm correct, but right now we're currently in the negative, about $1,000 there. I'm just asking for an additional $5,000 to kind of get us to the end of the year in case we would need it. At a minimum, I'd like to cover what we've expended thus far, and then if I need additional services, I can come back, but I'm just asking for the $5,000 just to ensure that there's enough. If we can do it at least once or twice more, we can do it for this year. So that's what I'm looking for with the psychiatric services. With respect to the jury pay fund, I'm asking for an additional $20,000 there. I was awarded this budget year $15,000. We've had 5 jury trials as of the day I submitted my application. I may have had one since then. I could be wrong about that. But so we've expended $18,507. So we're in a negative in that fund as well. Roughly, it seems it costs about $1,600 per trial, depending on the time frame, but that's generally what we've cost on average, at least to bring a jury in for a one-day trial. I gave you a list of the trials we have scheduled currently for the end of the year. Fortunately, one at the beginning of this month did not go forward, but I have several scheduled through the end of the year that I think anticipate might go. That's what I'm asking for, to cover that cost. Again, just ask for that in advance, anticipating those costs. Certainly, at your discretion, I can just submit them as additionals as we go forward each time. It's really up to you how you want to handle those.
So if these go as planned, based on your estimated cost, Judge, you've got $35,200, you're already at a negative $3,500 balance, so about $38,000, you're asking for $20,000. So a good chance you may have to come back and ask for another $20,000 by the end of the year.
I may. There's also,
they could settle too before.
They settle, things
right.
happen, I just don't know.
Okay.
It's hard to tell, so I'm shooting kind of in the middle to go from that route. That's all I'm doing it.
Okay. Any other questions for the judge? All right, if not, do I have a motion to approve the $20,000 for jurors and $5,000 for psychiatric services?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Todd. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Judge.
Mr. Petro, if you want to come on up next.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
So I come before you this evening for an additional appropriation to the budget for the Department of Emergency Management. This request is for an additional $8,100. Breaking that down for you, $1,600 of this would be to cover new computer towers that I was made aware of by our IT department, that those in my office are due for renewing. So that would be for $1,600. An additional $2,500 for travel, lodging, and conference fees. With me being in all of the FEMA schoolings and for the Department of Homeland Security to be able to have their credentialing to do my job, I'm having to travel throughout the state to get that completed. And right now, if I am one of the first ones to get signed up for the classes, they usually pick the top 5 to 10 and provide free motel stays during those classes. And if not, then it's on me. So I've figured it up pretty much, the amount of classes I have left that are out of town, what that would cost out of our pocket to do so if I'm not chosen for a free stay, basically. Third, I'm asking for $1,500 for vehicle repairs and maintenance, which would be the vehicles now being driven daily. The commissioner stated that they wanted me to use that as a take-home car for all 911 or emergency responses as well as non-emergency responses, driving it to and from these classes and so forth. And then lastly, an additional $2,500, which would be for gasoline for these trips, as well as using or having it maintenance, oil loops and so forth done. So that's a total of $8,100 that I'm coming to you for this evening.
If I recall, Lisa, a year ago when we did the budget, we kind of intentionally took that budget down to the bare bones until we could get a handle on what the expenses truly were. So some of this likely would have been probably budgeted if back in the day. So
Is there any balances in these line items? I didn't dig my book up or anything.
Not a whole.
Where we budgeted.
Not much of any.
I think we took it down to near zero for a lot of them intentionally so that we would have to have somebody explain to us those expenses.
If I'm not mistaken, when I came into the Office of Emergency Management at the end of January, there was about an $8,000 operating budget after salaries.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
there wasn't a whole lot if my
Because
math is
the
close.
intent was to have those expenses justified to us.
Correct.
In next budget cycle, we'll look at it differently.
Are there some actual bills that go along with the repairs and maintenance of the vehicle?
I'm sorry?
Are there some actual bills that you've incurred, plan to incur for the maintenance and?
The vehicle I'm driving currently is a 2014 Ford Explorer that I believe was a Sheriff's Department vehicle before. It's not in terrible shape, but with me driving it throughout, going to all of my classes and stuff, it's racking up the miles, and we try to keep it so it's not breaking down. I haven't had, knock on wood, any issues with it other than routine maintenance.
And you have no budget in that line item right now?
No, sir.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve the additional for office supplies, gas, oil, lube, travel, lodging, conferences, and maintenance and repairs?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Vicki. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brandon. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sheriff?
I believe I just have one appropriation, or
Additional?
additional, sorry. I believe I've brought up multiple times, we've been dealing with a sewer issue in the kitchen. I've been working with the commissioners on securing repairs for that. We put out bids. We got one bid out of 3 that came out. The commissioners had decided, not yesterday's meeting, but the meeting before, to move on the smaller scale project of replacing all the sewer lines in the kitchen. That bid came in at $64,600. I asked for the appropriation, or the additional, sorry, with a 25% contingency for any unforeseen things. I mean, we're working underground. We've already taken the stages of having ground penetrating radar company come out and scan all the floors in the kitchen. A lot of was ran under those floors, 10 to 12 inches of concrete. A lot of the electrical, all those things are directly underneath the concrete on gravel foundation. So when we were trying to do the minor repair months and months ago, they actually cut through the electric line. So we've, so we foresee that, that kind of project, we might have some incidentals, but also our kitchen's going to be shut down during that time. I'm going to have to rent a trailer, which we did during construction, when they were doing the HVAC and stuff in the kitchen. We rented a trailer that was on site to keep our food and those type of things in, so there's going to be a cost associated with that. That's why the total on that is $80,750. I just took that $64,600, put a 25% contingency in there for incidentals and some of the things I know that we're going to incur costs on. Again, that funding's coming out of, is that called the Jail Improvement Fund?
Ready to ask. How much money's in that account? Do you know?
Almost $1 million.
Okay, so plenty of funds in that account.
So the funds are coming out of there. It wouldn't come out of general fund, but, so I'm just asking for that money now. We don't have a start date set. There's still, like I said, we had the ground penetrating a few weeks ago. There was some discussion about temperature ranges of whether you could use PVC or cast iron in certain areas. We project if there is some change and some going into more PVC, it would actually be less than the 64,000. If anything, it wouldn't increase it. So we felt comfortable putting that in, asking for it now. But again, no start date is set. They're still doing some, there's some rerouting of some of the plumbing that goes out to our grease trap outside. It actually runs under a cell block in the jail. So we're looking at trying to reroute that a different route to get out to that grease trap and stuff, I think, before they lock down an initial start date. But I'd like to have the funding secured for that so we can move forward with it.
Any other questions for the sheriff? If not, do I have a motion to approve the additional of $80,750 for jail improvements?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, the next one is Kate, a drug-free community. Come on up. Welcome.
Hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather Baumgartner. I am the new president for CADA. I did hand out some paperwork to you earlier with the requesting the additional appropriation. This actually comes from a fund that is specifically designated for us based on some court fees and other things. We are required to spend at least 25% of it in each of the 4 categories: education and prevention, treatment, intervention, judicial funds, and then we have an administrative fund that we're able to use. There is a spreadsheet included with that that does specify the grants that we received, the amount they requested, the amount that we're able to give, based on the total amount that we have available to distribute. If there's any questions about that?
Any questions?
In your letter, I'm seeing that you're requesting additional appropriations of four different instances of $5,183.47. With the exception of the last line, it's 45 cents.
Yes, because it was an odd amount. And we did, the total amount that we had available.
Okay, I understand. You're dividing that up.
Get the grant zeroed out.
Yes.
Got it.
So that it was zero. We wanted to use all the money that we had available.
Any questions for Heather? If not, do I have a motion to approve the drug-free community additionals?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Heather.
I have one more small thing, if I can take just a moment more of your time. We did have a grant that sort of got lost in translation. They have an email showing they sent it, it disappeared somewhere. And then we were also wondering if we could request a total of $4,054.89 from the opioid fund so that we could fully fund the total amount that was requested here, and then also supply the other grant that sort of got lost and wasn't included.
How would we do that, Lisa? Would that have to be another additional that they come back for and officially ask for at the next meeting? Because we have to draft it.
Yes, and this is restricted or unrestricted?
I don't know. I think it was up to you to decide, I guess is what Molly told me.
Okay.
With it being-
We have to know what it was going to be used for, because
Okay.
opioid restricted have
So
restricted guidelines.
the grant, I'm sorry, I'm on that board also.
Nope, that's
Um,
okay.
That grant also tells us where everything's broke down. So, because they divide it in 25% each, it would be in all these categories. So that's how it would be used. So if you look at this, I'm not sure if this is enough information. Most of it is for education or judicial. There's treatment and intervention, and then also for the administrative part.
There is a lot of drug testing as well.
So the additional 4,000 would be split 25% to each of those same categories? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's the ones that were shortened. So there's
Oh,
short.
okay.
And then Southern Wells had sent one, but it didn't, it somehow got lost. She sent it by email instead of actual physical.
Yeah, that's fine.
So they wanted to add that on also.
Okay.
So they want to actually get enough money for the requested amount, and not all of that was fulfilled by dividing it this way.
Okay.
So that's what they wanted to take the opioid money for, not knowing for sure whether that's restricted or unrestricted, you know?
So we have to probably sort that out by the next meeting.
I would say it would be restricted.
Restricted? Okay. So we'll have to have another additional
Okay,
And,
for the next meeting, and then we'll approve it then.
okay.
We'll go through the process then.
That's perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, and the next one is Wells County CASA grant. I don't know if anyone's here from CASA. Judge, if you want to come back up again.
I get mixed up, those cat.
Yeah, I did too.
I get them.
Jeannie Vogel is my CASA director for Wells County. She applies for an annual grant. I think the application should be there with you. It's a matching grant. Historically, we had a garden ad litem, which was an attorney that was paid by the county to offer advocacy for children in child native services cases, termination of parental rights cases. Ginny has started a volunteer organization called CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates. We took some of the money that we previously had allocated for guardian ad litem work, put it into the CASA program, and there's a matching grant, and that's what I think she's requesting here tonight, is that matching grant. That's my.
And and the matching grant is to be used for the bench in memory of Donna.
Donna.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm.
So we're showing Donna.
I'm sorry, I thought.
Yeah, this one is
I'm sorry.
$25 and $45.
Then I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry, I can't speak.
Yeah, that one's
I think
for,
somebody gave them money for a bench.
yeah, we just have to, it was given to them, so we just have to provide the additional.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
For it.
didn't-
Yeah.
I just assumed that's what she was here for, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, which I think is a great way to remember Donna for her years of service to CASA, so. All right, do I have a motion to approve the Wells County CASA grant, the additional?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you, Brandon. Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, Vicki. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Sorry about that, I thought she was here for something.
That's good.
Sorry.
There's a lot of moving parts that happen, yep. The next one for Commissioners General Fund, we have a transfer from group help down to care of students. I don't know if there's any additional color, Blake, that you want to add around that or not? Seems straightforward. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the transfer for the Commissioners from Group Health of $20,000 to care of students for 20?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Brandon, thank you. And Steve, thank you for seconding it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then the last one is the economic development. is moving $20,000 from the building inspector also to the care of students. So if there's no questions on that one, do I have a motion to approve the transfer from building inspector to care of students?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brandon. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we're going to go ahead and move into the heart of the meeting. Darren, I'm going to put you to the end so you can have all the time in the world at the end.
I was going to ask that.
So people who want to leave and not stick around for your presentation, they can. So not offensive to you because we have a lot to learn from you tonight with all the changes.
Anyway.
Yeah. So we'll start off with the Wells County Sheriff, Scott.
As of today, we have 63 inmates in jail. 34 of those are pretrial circuit, 25 are pretrial superior, 4 DOC, and 0 F6. I handed out the monthly report, activity report for June, as well as the income generated so far this year. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. I don't believe we've, if you followed along, the DOC allocated a bunch of money to start paying back the counties that they haven't paid for DOC inmates yet. They haven't paid us in a year, just so you're aware. So we should start seeing that now that it's July. It was allocated for July, so they're going to start making those funds. I know counties that are way worse than us, Allen County being one of them, so you can imagine their number's a lot bigger than ours. But I can't remember what the newspaper printed an article on it. I can't remember how many millions of dollars they allocated to get caught up on that. So hopefully they stick with that. We won't have any issues. It is July, which I handed out the I can't talk today. Commissary funding report is given to you. That has everything from January through June of this year as far as expenditures. The law has changed, and I believe I will be giving this to you quarterly now. So Lisa will have that on the agenda. So you'll be getting a little bit shorter, 3 months worth of reporting over that period of time for that as well. So if anybody's got any questions on any of that, I'd be more than glad to entertain any questions.
What happened with the family with the transport van? I see that you had
Transport van,
25,000 roughly.
we bought a new one. Not a new one, but a new used one.
Use one. Okay.
Our other one was way over 100-some thousand miles, and we bought a new, it's our small, we have 2 transport vans. We have the big white one, if you've ever seen that one. We've had that for going on 6 years now, but we also have a smaller minivan style transport van, and it was time to get rid of it, so we traded that one in and got a new used one from Ford. So that was something we were able to use commissary funding to pay for and didn't come out of the budget, so.
Any other questions for the sheriff? If not, do you know what the resolution number on this would be, 2025-05? So we did have, for a couple of months ago, we did have a resolution that was drafted to help the sheriff out in his recruiting of a number of deputies he's going to need to be hiring coming up. Essentially, the resolution stated that the county hereby states its intention as part of its budgeting process for year 2026 to approve the recommended compensation increases for the Sheriff's Department to be effective January 1, 2026, is presented to council on Tuesday, May 6th, subject to and conditioned upon county council's ongoing obligations for fiscal responsibility and any unforeseen circumstances that may impact the proposed revenue or budget for 2026. So just a caveat in there that we're supporting you in all this. Our intent is to move forward with it. Do any council members, I know we talked about it, was meant to be drafted last meeting. If everybody's fine with it, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2025-05?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There you go, Sheriff. Hopefully it helps in recruiting.
I can
So hopefully
please
next
speak
3
on
months.
behalf of all of our employees. Thank you, Brandon, thank you for suggesting that. I think that's a big piece in our recruiting. We did hire, just an update, we did hire a deputy, a lateral, which means we don't have to send them to the academy, so that's been helpful. We got a 20-year veteran that's going to be starting on the 21st. I know what you guys did was a major part in that. So we have hired one, we're in the middle of a process right now, working on filling a few more positions, and like I said, we have 2 retiring, one in the end of this month and one in September. So again, on behalf of our staff and everybody else, we appreciate the support you've given our department in that fashion, so thank you very much and appreciate it.
Now, from our last meeting with the issues around the Norwell SRO,
Yes,
do you have somebody that's
we did.
interested in fulfilling that? Now, they came back and said they would like to stay in
Just kind of a
it?
quick update on the SRO. Norwell decided to not go into the venture that they were looking to go towards, which I think is a good call. Our SRO is retiring in September, so we still had a year on our contract with them. So they wanted us to fulfill that. We put that out. We do have a replacement for the SRO that's retiring. We did a selection process. We presented them to the, I wouldn't call it the school board, but we did our interview per our contract with last night with their panel of 4 people. It was 2 board members, the superintendent, and the principal. We presented our selection to them. They have approved that selection, and so we're going to be sending that individual to NASRO training for school resource officer. So he'll get his certification this summer. It's Andrew Gers is one of our deputies, been on for about 3 years. I think this is kind of a dream job for him. From day one when we hired him, he really wanted to, when we asked him what he wanted to do long-term, school resource was one of them. I felt like the conversations with the school were more on track of possibly after next year of continuing. Obviously we'll have to see where they're at in that year. We have a year left, but our goal is to go in and do the job that they contracted us to do, to build those relationships with kids, and hopefully continue the SRO program. I do agree with them. I believe they need more SROs in the school system, but they're under the same thing as we are. They're under they're going to have budget cuts and those type of things because of, the Senate Bill 1. So, they're going to have to navigate those waters as well. They're not sitting on a pot of gold to be able to put 3 or 4 SROs in the school system, but hopefully it's opened the doors for us to work together on that vision, that it includes us moving forward, and it's not something that they're separating from us. So I feel good going into the next school year, and it should be a good transition. We're ready to go. We already got him enrolled in training. I think he starts in 2 weeks. It's just a week-long school. But the transitioning stuff, we still have our current SRO not retiring until September, so that we're going to try and get those 2 to work together a little bit in the transition and have kind of a smooth flow going into the fall's school year. So.
Good.
Yep.
The other thing I'm hoping that will help you is, as part of that SB1 that was passed, is that, you may have seen it, but if you get somebody trained through the academy new, somebody steals them from you within 3 years, they have to pay you back all the costs and the compensation for that officer.
Correct.
My understanding was to help out smaller communities that were paying to get somebody trained and up and running, and then a Fort Wayne comes in, peels them off for more money, and we're active training, and so I think there were some good things that might
each year.
I think so.
First year it's 100%.
They didn't get into too much of the details at the meeting on it.
Second year it's 60-some and then 30-some. But the agency that lost the person has to petition. They only have so many days to petition it, but yes, you can get refunded, which is a good security for keeping those officers through those first 3 years.
Right.
It's a good law. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Heather, I think you're back up. Kata, or did you already get done what you needed to?
No, I think we're done with what we needed.
Okay.
Unless you need something else from me.
No, that's good. There's just on the list again, didn't want to overlook you in case you have more you wanted to say, so that is good. Dewey, if you want to come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I recently noticed that the most recent job description for the Veteran Service Officer position was dated 2004, so I thought it was probably time to update that, which I have done here, and I think you have a copy of it to look over, ask questions, and hopefully approve what we've got here. It essentially expands some of the duties, the expectations of the position, and also expands some of the skill sets that are, I feel anyway, are necessary to be successful.
We've had a conversation in the past about whether or not this body approves of job descriptions. Thought the consensus was that might not be our role.
It is.
You do the wages.
It's tied to the wages.
It's tied to the wages, so
Yeah.
we will approve.
Mhm.
Okay.
If the commissioners would want to update, like the highway engineer or something, they can do that, and then.
There's certain contractual employees with the commissioners that they would take care of.
Okay.
And this does not address any salary issues for the position. If and when there would be a new person, then it would be up to the council, I guess, to establish.
During our budget,
So
yeah.
are job descriptions approved by both the commissioners and the council? Just the council? Okay.
Any questions for Dewey?
On this job description, it talks about frequently required to stand, walk, and sit. Are we exempting anyone in the future that might be handicapped and unable to do this standing?
Well, I guess if it was a completely handicapped individual that was confined to a wheelchair, maybe that should be addressed there.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
And I didn't know if that was, not knowing the extent of that, and also it talks about occasionally lifting 50 pounds. I don't know if that is a actual absolute requirement, or is that something that, what would it be that you'd need to lift that would be that?
Usually carrying boxes of paper from the courthouse over to the annex.
Okay.
Nothing on a regular basis at all.
I've seen job descriptions, and this seems like a kind of a standard plug-in on that section.
Yes, I've seen the same thing on descriptions from other counties.
Right. Want to make sure that we're not approving
Right.
something that
They come back and it's not.
come back and say, somebody could do this if they were in a wheelchair.
Particularly if military service is required. You might have a veteran in a wheelchair or with a disability.
I would just ask that we look at that section, and if that needs revised, have you revise that before we
Okay.
approve.
Yeah, do you mind revising that, Dewey, and then we'll approve it after you get your revision done?
Be glad to.
Okay.
And what was it?
It's on the back
Physical
page.
demands.
The first paragraph, though, to me, looks like of that section accommodates what we're asking them to do. It mentions reasonable accommodations will be made to enable individuals with disabilities to perform the essential functions.
Yeah, that may cover it.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Saying
No,
I
I-
disagree with what you're saying.
I think the heart of it's in that last sentence as well.
I see that, I think we might be okay.
Yeah. I think we'll be good. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Steve, for bringing it up.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, do I have a motion to approve then the job description as presented by Dewey?
Make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vicki. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Dewey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dewey.
All right, well, again, we'll skip down to the end, and we'll, Colin, if you want to come on up and talk about the opioid settlement funds.
Evening.
Good evening.
So I'm on what we call JRAC. JRAC stands for the Judicial Reinvestment Advisory Council. It's a somewhat recent organization set up by the state statute. It was founded in 2018 under a law signed by Governor Holcomb at the time. And JRAC is a collection of individuals that are statutorily just sort of nominated. The prosecutors won, the sheriffs, judges. We've got representatives from the council and commissioners, et cetera. It's a large body. And the target sort of reason for JRAC to exist is a reduction in recidivism amongst ex-offenders. And recidivism is always a problem. It's a big drain on resources. It's, the idea constitutionally is not just to punish criminals, but it's also to help rehabilitate them. That's in our Indiana Constitution, actually. It's required when we are sentencing someone to look at that, look at what can we do to bring this person back to rehabilitation, back to integration in society. So the state had seen a disconnect between the sort of the older funding mechanisms and between probation, the Department of Correction, community correction, the courts themselves, prosecutors' offices, and services that were out in the community. So this would be your service providers helping people with addiction, maybe transitional housing, those sorts of things, right? And so they wanted to use evidence-based practices, get everybody in the same room, report back to the state quarterly, and decide. Then the state can decide where are we putting money that we're not getting a good ROI on, move it to other areas where it's a little bit better used, again, to reduce recidivism, okay? So that's what JRAC is. I'm just a member of the board. In our June 30th meeting, Mr. Harnish and a gentleman named Trent Reichley came to us and gave a presentation on a project that the Wells County Foundation is engaged in at this point. Now, this project is in a very nascent stage. I believe there's been chatter about it. I don't think there's been any formal vote by any legislative body yet. But and Brandon can probably explain a little better than I can, but the Wells County Foundation has created a land trust. It's dedicated to the acquisition of certain properties in town. There would be properties that may be distressed, maybe problems from a law enforcement angle, but also maybe some properties that have historical value, and engage in a potential pretty significant investment in urban revitalization in the community, specifically within Bluffton. I talked about it last night at the commissioners meeting. If any of you watched, we had a nice, healthy discussion about it. And that was a pitch that was given to us in JRAC. Again, JRAC's here to advise you and advise the state overall on how are we connecting with local needs, both short-term and long-term, in our system, in our criminal justice system. So there will be more talk about this. Actually, I believe Brandon's going to be talking about this right after me, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I have no affiliation with that project. I'm just on JRAC and was there and is just speaking as a representative of JRAC. I'm a supporter of that project so long as everybody agrees. And it's funded appropriately and works appropriately, because I see there are blighted properties, there are issues in our urban center, and the vision of this group that's working through things would be not only combating urban blight and maybe like flop houses, you hear these terms that do exist, and cleaning those up and raising everything, but also bringing a level of health and a level of safety to downtown that increases its desirability, its investment, its tourism, and Brandon calls it the Vitalism Project, and I like that. That comes from the word for life. Vita is life, and so bringing life up, raising life up here in the downtown. And as a prosecutor, I can say that these projects, as they rolled out across the country, this is not a new thing. In fact, the group that is working with the foundation, PAGO, has done it in Van Wert, Ohio,
and in over the Rhine, Cincinnati, if you've ever been down there, it's really neat. But generally speaking, when the standard of living goes up, crime goes down in these areas. This is how it works. And as a prosecutor, I'm all about that. That's what I want to see. So I'll let Brandon talk more about the project again. But the presentation specifically was about opioid settlement funds. When I was county attorney here, the first thing I did was sign our opt-in agreement with the state for reception of opioid settlement agreement funds, which is in 2022. Okay. So there's roughly $300,000 that is in that account. The vast majority of those funds are restricted. I think it's 65% are restricted. The restriction, there's a statute on restricted funds. I talked with Ted Storer yesterday about what that really means. He's digging into it as well. Basically, there's when payments are made, they need to be tied to the specific purpose for which they were given. There is an opiate issue here in our community. We see it all the time. We used to talk about OxyContin or Oxy pills. We would hear about heroin. Fentanyl is our big enemy right now because fentanyl is very dangerous. It's out there in the community to the point where, if Scott was here, he could probably back me up on this, but drug-sniffing dogs are trained not to sniff for fentanyl because it can kill the dog. It's that powerful. So there's money that's out there, and at this presentation, JRAC was able to vote on a recommendation to you all and to the commissioners that JRAC saw this project being done by the Wells County Foundation is an appropriate use of those funds. Brandon can suss that out a little bit more for you. But the circuit court judge, the sheriff, the Bluffton chief of police, the head of community corrections, the acting director of community corrections all agreed that we want something like this to happen. We want to see the downtown thrive and get better. We want to see an infusion of capital. We want to preserve what we have, but also build for the future. So everybody agreed that there's distressed properties as well where there is common crime that is occurring. We can't just go into these houses. We have to work within the system that we have. So anything that can raise up the standard of living downtown is something that we in the law enforcement community, and I think I can speak for them all, would see as a net benefit. It's going to lower crime rates, and it's also going to lower the cost of the judicial system that we have. It's an amazing machine that we have. It's an expensive machine statewide, and if crime lowers, then that cost goes down as well. So,
You may not be the right person to answer this question, but where are these people going to go?
well, I'm going to defer to Brandon on that. I'm not a part of the project. I don't think we're talking.
When you talk about displacing potential criminals or criminal activities, or they're going to go somewhere.
Well, again, I'll defer to the people who know more about it.
If I can chime in here.
Can I say? Go ahead. People don't have to commit crimes. People commit crimes because they choose to commit crimes, right? And addictions are real, and sociological factors, criminogenic factors are real. But in a community where that is beautiful, a community that's healthy, that has a lot of people around, there could also be an encouragement for people who are here to maybe stop committing the crimes that they were committing for. There would be a shame in that because this is a beautiful place and that sort of thing isn't welcome here. So I'm not saying we find the people who commit crimes and get them out of town. I'm actually, and I think JRAC saw this as well. Well, this is actually a way to use funds to encourage people who may be in the throes of addiction and may have the issues, maybe have generational poverty that they've been dealing with, to be a part of a community that's just getting better and they rise along with it. But I'll let Brandon speak.
Yeah, and I mean, that's well said. And along with that, Scott, the question, where will they go? We have made a distinction between sort of a short-term direct attack on drug abuse and a more long-term attack on drug abuse. And part of economic development, creating more economic opportunity, would be to give people more of an option, such that they wouldn't have to lead a life of crime. They would be less exposed to those social determinants that move people into crime. And so that is a part of the answer to your question, in addition to what Colin had said.
How, I don't understand what you're saying. I hear the words, but I'm not pulling anything out.
So, I mean, like, for example, if you live in a distressed community where there's no occupation, no opportunity, very low education, you're more likely to engage in crime to pay the bills. You're more likely to engage in crime because perhaps you don't have something to do. And you see this around the country in projects like this, and in the state of Indiana, where there is more opportunity as a result of economic development, sort of a rising tide lifts all boats, you do tend to see crime reduce. Because now maybe people have more amenities, more quality of life projects or amenities that they can enjoy, or occupations that they can go pursue, more opportunities broadly. So that's the function, that's the mechanism. As I understand it, I'm not a sociologist, I don't specialize in crime reduction. I've just read the studies, and I've been persuaded that this would be a good project.
Colin, you mentioned that 65% of the opioid funds are restricted.
Yes.
You talked to Ted. Is Ted looking to verify that these funds can be used for this purpose? Like, do we need to wait to get legal opinion to say that we're able to use the funds for this purpose, or are you pretty confident that, yes, that can be done?
So,
I hate to allocate funds and then find out, whoops,
right.
that we shouldn't have done that, so is that box kind of been checked off?
When I asked Ted about it yesterday before the meeting, he actually had the statute up on use of restricted funds.
Okay.
So I'm, as a lawyer, I'm going to tell you, always talk to your lawyer. And so I think that would need to be, figured out. I certainly would advise that. And when Brandon talks, I think he can touch on some more direct opiate angles that the project wants to take. Again, I'm just here on behalf of JRAC. JRAC is not coming to you and saying, hey, we want you to use all this money for this project. The general recommendation was, hey, this is a suitable use, if it's suitable, if we complying with the code and FSSA regulations. The JRAC saw value in this. So CADA is here. We also have Mr. Yergler here with Tri Recovery. Those are also worthy projects, and certainly JRAC's not saying, no, we want all of the money to go one way, because it's not JRAC's money. JRAC won't touch any of the money. It's just a suggestion that as you explore this option, because there will be asks that come to you from the Wells County Foundation, whoever is working this, that a consideration of use of this funds is given the blessing by JRAC, the organization that really is there to advise you on the proper use of those funds. I wish I had a better understanding of restricted, unrestricted.
That's fair.
But because I don't quite know all that the project entails, I can't really say it would or wouldn't. These things can change in time, and I think that's something that Mr. Storer would be well equipped to handle.
Well, okay, that's a good answer.
Seth, I have no intention of asking for a vote tonight. I think we need to digest this. I think.
Yeah, no, that'd be a piece of it, is just to dot that I.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So, well, thank you, Colin. And Mr. Yergler, it looks like do you have a comment on this as well, or?
If I may,
Yeah,
can I sit here and talk? Or-
sure.
Yeah, so I read the paper, and that's why I came tonight. And I know about everybody in here, and I love working with everybody. And Mr. Andrews, yeah, he's absolutely right. You build up the city, crime's going down. I saw the paper, Brandon. You did say that Harnish proposed that $301,609, nearly the entire balance, should also be used toward this land trust. That's what the paper said. So
Yeah, that's accurate.
This conversation's changing, that it's not all this. But I guess here's all I want to say tonight. I just come here to share my opinion. People died for this money. There's crimes committed by big pharmaceutical politicians to where that's why we're getting this money. Families are destroyed, families are ripped apart. I personally don't believe this is a judicial, this money's not about, it's hard to separate, like JRAC, all that. We need I personally have gone through this whole system. I was an offender. I spent over 4.5 years incarcerated. I came home. I was on probation for 2 years. I went through that in 2020. the Honorable Judge Kirchhoff. He expunged my record. Like, I've done the full 360 in this system as an addict, and I'm constantly in recovery. This $300,000 should not be used to build our uptown Bluffton. The reason, I mean, to me, it's like a slap in the face. People died in their addiction, and yet we're going to build something in Bluffton where there's probably going to be some kind of alcoholic establishment that's going to go in there. And again, I don't have anything wrong with alcoholic establishments at all, and people can drink and all that. That's great. But it's like this money, there's families that need this money. When this first came down the pipe, there was a small committee started by Josh Hunt and the city councilman. I understand city and county's different. I sat on that with him, Todd Rimschizel, and John Shady, who is a paramedic who's out in the battle every day with this stuff. And I remember Todd Rimschizel told me that, you know, I've sat on these committees several times and they just die out. And this was 2 years ago, and here we are. But now I'm excited that the conversation's beginning. And what I did was I put together a quick list of some things going on in Wells County. With what's going on in the federal government, funding has been slashed to several of our non-for-profits right here in this town. And they're starting to cut back on programs that they offer. And again, in my opinion, this $300,000, restricted, unrestricted, we could help our own community out better this way. Boys and Girls Club, we got foundations right there on Market Street. They are touching these people. Mr. Ellison, you said, where are they going to go? Great question. Where are they going to go? We're going to push them out. Now we're going to have problems out in the counties. And now all that money's back in just the city of Bluffton. We didn't take care of the issue. We got Helping Hands. They're constantly dealing with families that have been touched by this crisis. Community care, here's Grace and Mercy, Hannah's House. I do a lot of work with recovery homes in Allen County, Wabash County, Huntington County, and Adams County. No one does a recovery home like Grace and Mercy and Hannah's House. They are taking moms with children in their facility. They're one of the only ones in the state. They could build 7 more rooms to take these women on with their kids, and they would be filled tomorrow. We could dump money into something like that. We're helping the people that are struggling with the addictions. We also have Brianna's Hope, Hope Family Recovery. That's a new organization that just got started up. And this is to help the parents who have maybe a family member involved, a child in addiction, or a spouse who lost somebody in this addiction. And I guess I just come here to show the heart that I'm 100% about Bluffton being revitalized, and everything that was said by Mr. Andrews is completely correct. You build up the town, you're going to eliminate some crime. But this $300,000, I don't think is, nor should be used toward building up Bluffton. Also in this paper, again, I don't want to misquote Mr. Harnish, but one of the things you talk about is sort of like the pool project, and I think I agree with you 100%. There are private investors that are willing to build up our Bluffton. Let's let them build up Bluffton. But with this money here, let's dump it into the front lines. Let's dump it into the families that need counseling because they lost their daughter or their son. You also got kids vaping like crazy, out of control. Education. Last Wednesday, every month, the Wells County Chamber of Commerce put together a Wells County Drug Task Force. We meet every last Wednesday of the month. We break into 3 sections: community, education, and then also youth and adults, parents. You know, and again, this isn't a slam on anybody here, but I don't think any council has ever even attended one of these meetings, or I've never seen anybody. And we're trying to figure out what we can do to help this community, how we can use these funds. I'm glad this conversation started, and again, I don't know what I can do to help. I'll do what I can, but the big thing is I'm petitioning the council to have conversations with these non-for-profits that are doing stuff, working with these kids whose parents are out working 2 jobs trying to make ends meet, and all of a sudden one of the parents ODs, gets arrested, gets picked up for OWI, whatever it is. Now all of a sudden they lose that income. Incarceration is not the answer. We're dealing with mental health here. We're dealing with addictions. Again, if you are on drugs and you go out and you rob someone, yes, you're going to be incarcerated. If you get picked up because you've got something on you, that needs to be treatment, in my opinion. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have lived a life as an addict. I have seen it's people sitting all around here, including the prosecutor himself, while I'm here today. Mr. Andrews wasn't the prosecutor in my case, Michael Lotzenheiser was, but because of him, he saved my life because I couldn't manage it. And by sentencing me to the DOC, it did work. But again, at the same time, I think possibly back 20 years ago, going to some kind of treatment for a year and a half, 2 years, could have got the job done as well. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, well,
I ask you just consider what we really do with this $300,000. I'm glad to
well, thank you for your input and for all the work that you do as well. So, yep, Colin, if you have another.
Thank you, Andy. At that JRAC meeting, there was a kind of, there was Jenny Broderick was the sole no vote on that. And she echoed a lot of what Andy was saying here, which is there's sort of frontline issues that are going on right now. There's an immediate need. And just like Brandon said, there's a short-term and a kind of a long-term component. And so JRAC's not really just taking a position over anything else. JRAC is simply saying that there's a long-term building up of the downtown would have a beneficial effect, which I think we all agree on, you know. Not to say JRAC's coming in here and saying, no, this is the only thing that matters. And I really appreciate what Andy had to say today.
Yeah, I would echo that, Colin, and for clarity, you know, we ask for a particular amount of money. The council and the commissioners are always able to reduce what is actually allocated. I'm glad there's a conversation happening, and I know when I went to JRAC at that point, the only idea that had been presented to JRAC was the one that I presented. It was the only ask that they had been given. I'm more than happy to come to the table and talk about other strategies when it comes to opioid remediation. I mean, you spoke to it, that people were murdered by Big Pharma. That's exactly right, Andy. And under no circumstances are we trying to misuse opioid funds whatsoever. Again, as Prosecutor Andrews mentioned, it's short-term versus long-term. That's the way we've kind of made this distinction. If I thought that this money wasn't appropriate, I wouldn't have asked the JRAC, and I don't believe JRAC would have sort of not objected if it was inappropriate, but that doesn't mean it has to be spent on that project at all or in its entirety. I think the benefit of going to JRAC clearly is that people are talking about this money. And it shouldn't just sit in a bank account. It should be doing something. And if at the end of the day, you know, Hannah's House and Grace and Mercy and some of these other organizations you mentioned, if that money gets to them quicker as a result of this ask, that's a success in my book.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Brand, you want to? Yeah, I don't want to take very long on this.
Other piece of the puzzle.
I'm going to kind of fill in some of the blanks that Colin had. He did a really good job of kind of just mentioning, kind of giving you a bird's eye view. So I've created a bubble chart for you. If you take a look in your folder, this is going to just give you a picture of all the different players that are a part of this project. The Wells County Foundation is really the engine that makes this project run, and I really look at this entire project as an investment in our own people and in our own county. I don't believe Wells County can be strong without a strong Bluffton. Wells County is the body, and Bluffton is the heart, and our county is only as strong as its cities and towns. And so it's real easy in our day and age to open up your phone and dump money into Wall Street. It's a lot harder to invest in downtown Bluffton. It takes blood, sweat, tears, ingenuity, and a lot of risk to invest in downtown Bluffton. It's not fair. We live in a rigged economy, in my view, where money flows to Wall Street and it flows out of Wells County. And that's what this project is ultimately trying to attack. I think if you take a look at this bubble map here, it's very simply, Colin mentioned the Land Trust. You've got that organization operating under the Wells County Foundation. The model here is that the city of Bluffton and Wells County would each contribute a $1 million line of credit. That was all part of my spiel yesterday. It was in the paper if you read it. And then, again, this is not just dumping money into a project. This is an investment into our own people, into our own downtown, into the heart of our county. Potentially, there would be a JRAC contribution of $300,000, but as we just discussed, anything is on the table with that money. Certainly not trying to crowd out other ways of attacking drug addiction in our community. There are also private partners involved, and there's just kind of a list of what Bluffton Vitalism is all about. It's addressing blight and vacancy, eliminating unsafe environments, reducing social and physical access to drugs, historic building restoration, River Greenway expansion, and as a part of the River Greenway expansion, Tri-Recovery was on my mind as a place where there would be just added trail to enjoy, to have marathons or 5Ks. Riverfront development and common spaces and quality of life. I believe building a great county and a great city means common spaces and quality of life investments. Investing in the people who live here now. We can always chase smokestacks, we can always chase subdivisions, but our real focus ought to be on making Wells County great for the people who call it home today. And of course, making it great for our children who hopefully one day will choose to stay here. And I'll conclude by just mentioning, I've told this story a handful of times, but I go to the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo with my daughter and my wife. We go into the African safari exhibit, and I see the plaques and the nameplates and the bricks on the wall and on the ground with people's names on them. And I look at that, and I'm impressed at the men and women of Fort Wayne who had a vision for their city, and they had the will to execute it. They wanted to build a children's zoo that the children of their community could enjoy, and I enjoyed it when I was a child. My daughter enjoys it today. It's a generational project, and that's really how I view this project. It's generational. It's something that children will be able to enjoy, and not just my daughter, but then her children in the future. A strong downtown, removing blight, and not necessarily just the downtown. I know last night we talked about the old Wells Community Hospital is a major target of blight in this town. So that is my long elevator pitch on this. If you have any questions, I'm happy to have a conversation with you, but I really want to be respectful of everybody's time tonight.
Does anyone have any questions from council with Brandon? Again, this is just a discussion point. I think the commissioners even didn't vote on anything as of last night, right? So just digest it, take it in. But it's a good time to either ask Brandon questions now or after the meeting, whatever anybody wants to.
I anticipate, the Wells Community Foundation later this month will establish a firm commitment as what they're willing to do as, again, kind of the engine of the project. After they have made their commitment, we'll be able to evaluate that piece of the puzzle and then make a decision. It's too early to make a decision now, but it's not too early to get it out in front of all the council members and in front of the public. So there's no motion to be made tonight. The conversation will continue, and it'll take shape. And that's kind of where it is.
And I want to be clear, I see a few people here who've done some really good things in downtown Bluffton with revitalizing and things through the private sector. My understanding from being involved in this for about 2 years now is that the idea is to not go after the properties in which the private sector wants. Those are, and I've talked to several people that, my involvement when I got in this in the beginning was basically those properties that just in the private sector, they can't find a way to make it economically feasible to rehab these properties. The ones that are falling apart, the ones in which, and I've said to the people I've talked to that, call me and let's sit down. If there are properties that you say is on the private side, you can go rehab. I'd rather have the private sector do this all day long. But on the other hand, you can't have a downtown that's falling apart and buildings just crumbling because there's nobody there who's willing to do it without being able to get the added tax credits that are out there, historical tax credit, new tax credits. This would be a generational long project. I mean, you're talking 20, 30-year project. But I don't want to exclude those people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into already putting a lot of money and resources on the private side into this downtown. This is not to compete against them.
I would jump in on that, and kind of the idea that I've seen when Mike Lotzenheiser and Bluffton Now decided to engage in the Plaza project. What followed was major investments into our downtown space, and now you have a downtown that is significantly better than where it was 10, 15 years ago. And so investment chased an investment. And now what we want to do is build on the success of Bluffton now and on the private investors who've already come in. You have Bourbon MD down there, you've got the brewery, you've got Fast Eddie's Ice Cream, you've got Hughes, you've got a variety of establishments down there that have, investors have really turned a lot of these properties around. The Stoffers have done so as well. So again, not trying to crowd out anybody. The land trust is, everything's local. And that's another part of this project, is local investment into our own community.
And this has also come a long way from a couple years ago. They were wanting the city and county to be the ones to be the investors, and I'm like, that was a no-go for me.
Yeah.
The 5-year loan that's backed by the foundation, is my understanding, that made that a little bit more comfortable, because I don't think we should be in the business of outright equity investing into that project, but if we can help get something started where nobody else wants to be buying these buildings, and if the private sector wants to buy them and make it work.
And it's worth clarifying, Wells County government, Bluffton City government would own nothing under this project. This is owned by a 501c3 nonprofit. The land trust, that nonprofit stays on the tax rolls.
Could they still be paying property taxes?
They continue to pay property taxes, that's right. So this is not Wells County getting involved in government ownership of property. This is Wells County investing in the Wells Community Foundation.
Does council have any other?
I think a question that a lot of people would have is, Colin talked about the $300,000 from the opioid trust fund. You're talking about millions of dollars, I think people would want to know, what's that going to go to? I mean, I know you're saying maybe buying properties, maybe refurbishing properties. I think there's a question in my mind that people would have, okay, you got all this money out there, but what are you using it for?
Are you referring to the $300,000 specifically, or?
That, and, I was looking at, okay, so the foundation, $3 million, different ones. And I know that there's probably specified reasons for it.
So the $5 million altogether?
Yeah.
Where's the $5 million going?
Basically, what's that for?
So I want to be clear that when I presented to the JRAC, I made a commitment to the JRAC that any money that we would receive from the opioid settlement funds would be directly tied to opioid related or drug abuse related issues. So there would need to be an earmark on that money to ensure that any money we were awarded or any money we allocated or appropriated for that would be used specifically for that purpose. As it concerns the total amount of money here, that's the capital stack that would be used to acquire properties and then remediate those properties, in addition to grants and tax credits.
To give you an idea, Vicki, my understanding is that they start off with basically the need for at least 12 buildings to get started. Once you have 12 buildings acquired, then they have the scale to go out and be able to get then the historical tax credits and new credits, which really pay for about 80% of the rehab of the buildings. Without being able to get those credits, it's not really feasible to put all that money into the project. You'll never cash flow it. Is my understanding from the numbers that I've seen.
Is that state or?
Federal land, federal, I think.
Department of Interior.
Yeah, is the historical credits, is new credit state though? Or are they both federal?
I think they're both federal.
Okay. So.
They were
I'm
secured
just
in
asking because
And it takes a lot of
see
money
people's
to go get
minds
that.
going, but I heard this presentation, but I have no idea what that money is being asked for.
It'd be to purchase the initial buildings.
I mean, even say you refurbish the old Wells Community Hospital, and you had an area in there for, I don't know, moms and children, or even drug addicts to go for some type of meetings, I don't know, whatever. Then that's, to me, I just think people would have questions about where the money's going for, so.
How's it going to be used, yeah.
To acquire these properties, not to get into the, into the weeds of it, would eminent domain be used?
No, so this, again, Wells County, the city of Bluffton are not we're investors in a private non-for-profit 501c3. Eminent domain would not factor into this.
But if you're looking at a group of buildings and you renovate these buildings and then there's two right in the middle of it that are just not able to be acquired, would they go to that extreme to do that, or?
No. What would typically happen in their other projects in Hillsdale and in Van Wert, Todd, is it typically like anything else, if you're building up and you've got the nicer buildings and ones that are still blighted on each side, usually the owners of the blighted ones, nobody's now renting from them because they're going to the other buildings that are nicer. So typically what they've seen is that those people then come back and say, okay, we're willing to sell now. Is typically.
Even if it's for a lower price possible? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get in the weeds of it.
That's just, that's what their rationale is kind of, yeah, that's what their experience, they said, has been, because I said the same thing as
These
that.
kind of projects, you start to see that creep in.
Right, he said normally when they start to get going with it, start rehabbing, and people see what they're doing, then they realize, well, I can't compete with that building, so I'm either going to sell and have them rehab it, or they make it nicer themselves and rehab it themselves. So.
Eminent domain is not part of the equation.
Any other questions?
Just one question, if you don't mind. So,
Absolutely.
Who's actually driving this project? I've kind of learned whatever's been in the paper for the last 5 or so days, so that's the length of time that I've had an awareness of anything going on. And everybody I talked to, it's just kind of unclear. One of the papers, I think, that you were referencing, made reference that the Wells County Foundation is driving and steering this thing. That's probably not the impression that I get when I'm talking to folks. But, and it seems like there's like this level of knowledge within a large number of elected officials, but it hasn't been out that I'm aware of at a public meeting. So I'm curious, like, we talk about the engine. Can we talk about the other parts of the car while we're at it?
So on the foundation side, the way it works is you have the land trust and you have a 5-member board of the land trust. 3 of those 5 board members are appointed by the foundation.
And so those are all appointed already?
3, or they will be. I'm not in the weeds on that, John, but.
They're not appointed yet. The foundation is yet to formally commit in the form of a capital investment. They've created the land trust. One of the reasons perhaps you've not heard anything specific is because this project has changed shape a number of times before it's kind of matured into what it is at this point. And so, it was, in order to bring something to the public, you have to prepare it so that the public can have the exact conversations we're having right now. That was my goal in bringing it last night, or bringing it to JRAC first, and then bringing it to the commissioners, and then bringing it to council as a part of that process for just public feedback, public engagement. We've received valuable feedback tonight from Andy, and that's the idea for having this conversation, bringing it up tonight.
And I would love to see, before there's formal move forward on this, is that we do get together with the private sector, hear the voices of some of their concerns. I've heard from a number of people, and I'm happy to meet with anybody and everybody. Again, I'm not as much in the weeds as I was a year and a half ago. But yeah, I mean, there are valid concerns that people have been bringing up. Hopefully we're able to alleviate that. One is, that I heard is, well, why is the government getting into this? Well, to help with economic development, the government gets into a lot of things. We do tax abatements all the time. We do a lot of different activities. This might be a little bit different, but a lot of other communities have done this as well in order to try to rehab their local communities, doing what the private sector just isn't maybe willing to do. And so I'd be happy to meet with anybody to talk through some of those ideas.
Yeah, and that's the reason we're not making any motions tonight. We're having a conversation about it.
I mean, in fairness, Mr. Harnish, one of the messages you gave is that you expect the Wells County Foundation at their next meeting to pass and approve to go forward with this, which is a non-governmental entity, to be sure. But it does seem like there are some things, and I want to push back a little bit. I mean, you mentioned the 2-year activity. It does seem like there's some things pretty far down the road. And while I live downtown, and we have invested a significant amount of money downtown and had a good time while doing it, I'm actually with Mr. Yergler in terms of, I'm probably a skeptic of seeing correlation and causation questions. And as someone who's suffered with a type of inundation in my life. I very strongly agree with everything that he said, and I just ask that we put it out in the open and have those conversations as a community rather than the assumption that, hey, it's going to pass in 30 days and kind of be moving.
Yeah, and I'm on the foundation board, and I don't know that there's an imminent vote necessarily to say we're going to do it the next meeting. Again, I'm not in the weeds anymore like I was.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear that if I'm speaking out of turn and they do that.
No, I'm
it's-
just basing that off of what
but-
Mr. Harnish said, not because of anything
Yeah.
that I picked up from the foundation.
But yeah. Yeah, Andy?
One question on the 300,000. If it's going to be used to vitalize things, could that, and again, I don't know what the restricted and unrestricted is, but could that be used to buy one of these houses? I love what you said about, hey, if the private sector wants to jump in, but when you can't, then government has to sort of jump in and take care of the situation. Could we use those funds to buy a house wherever this house is, and as a community refurbish it and turn it into a transition home and put it right in the, make it look beautiful? And you know, again, one of the big things in addiction is shame and all that, but people that are putting their lives together, it's ran well, it's not ran like a praxis, it's ran like it's supposed to be, to where now all of a sudden,
Like a business.
as a community, hey, we're proud of people that get that second chance and can figure it out and move on, we're there to help them. You know, the weeds aren't 6 feet tall. I mean, when you see that house, it's a great story to tell. And I mean, could we use those funds, instead of building something downtown, use it to buy a house or two like that and refurbish that to, again, fill a need for, again, the people that have died. And we've had people in our community that have died, kids.
I think everything's on the table. To me, everything like that can be on the table. I don't,
Just conversation.
so, yep. Well, thank you, and again, if you have questions, obviously Brandon's been picking up this mantle for, I don't know, the last 6 or 9 months and really running hard with it, and I appreciate your efforts on it, Brandon. But feel free to reach out to me as well, because like I said, I enjoy getting the calls, talking it through with everybody, meeting, happy to do lunch, breakfast, anything, just to make sure that the community is well aware of what the intentions are. Whether or not we pass it or not, we'll find out down the road. But at least that there's not this misnomer that a bunch of backdoor business and activities going on. Want to get it out there and answer any questions anybody has. So. Darren, are you ready?
Are you done with everyone else?
For now. We'll see when you get done. Now you're clearing the room, Darren. You get up and know everybody's leaving. Well, thank you, Darren, for coming.
I'm going to stand.
That's fine. Part of why I wanted Darren to come is obviously with SB 1 passing, understanding what the impact may be or may not be. I have a feeling it's maybe on our revenue for not just this year, but going forward. I did give to every council member a PowerPoint that Vicki, Lisa, and I went to a county meeting down in Indianapolis 3 weeks ago, whatever it's been, a few weeks ago, and that was a PowerPoint that was shared that really highlights a lot of the important aspects of what SB 1 was done that got passed. Ways and Means Chairman Thompson was there and highlighted a lot of really interesting things. One is that this body, by I think it's 2028, when it's all phased in, we're going to be responsible for basically allocating funds to trustees, townships. We're going to be approving all the funds now for the library. They're basically putting a lot more responsibility now into this body countywide beyond what we already have. Correct me, Lisa and Vicki, if I'm wrong on any of that, but it's going to be an interesting next few years. And as Chairman Thompson said, that was done intentionally to give this elected board that represents the entire county more authority over a lot of the townships and other receiving entities. So Darren, I'll turn it over to you now.
I put together 20 questions 10 weeks ago. I've been dealing, your local Senator Travis Holman, when it started authoring it, got 7 or 8 other senators to help co-author it. And I'm dealing with one of them out of Madison County. And I helped his wife when she was treasurer in Madison County government for 8 years and then commissioner. So I knew taxes. On top of that, they use my website all the time. which, by the way, I'm up to 64 county, every night I have 64 county tax data. So at my fingertips, I'm able to put together statistics, which I did plenty of. When the bill started, it was only, I think, 67 pages. When I was dealing with the senator when they first started it, instead it went up to, I think, 187 pages. My joke to him was every time someone sneezed, they were adding more pages. And the problem was they all had hay fever. So it just kept exploding and getting crazy. On top of the fact that instead of throwing ideas into a hat and pulling out only a few, they threw it all together and they contradict each other is the problem. Hence, like I said, I was supposed to get answers in 10 days, and it's been 10 weeks. The finance division, or whatever they call it, of the senator's office and House Representatives, Legislative Services, and the DLGF, none of them can agree on how they wrote it. One of the funny things in the AIC, I was reading off this little pamphlet there for the AIC, one of the lines says that homeowners, there's a homestead credit of 10%, up to $300. And I said, okay, the question is, you sort of reference that as an over 65. If you're over 65, you get a circuit breaker, then it's 2% only on the homestead portion. But DLGF says, no, this is a flag. That's a homestead flag that you get a credit. But yet the PowerPoints, as you point out, it says it's a homestead credit. They didn't read it that way. So they're arguing, and this is just one of 50 different things that they're arguing about. The example would be is you have excess acreage at cap 2. You have another shed, barn, whatever, at cap 3 with your homestead. So therefore, your homestead, let's say, is $1,000. But you also have another $1,000 worth of cap 2 and cap 3. Is it 10% on the bill, or is it 10% on the home? Do you get $100 of 10% on the 1,000, or do you get $200 on the bill? Now, the problem is, we've seen it in historical, that the DLGF does their own interpretation. They're the ones that have the say in it. And they're the arm of the governor because it's not a constitutional office. So whatever benefits the governor, they kind of go along with. We saw that in homesteads, in that you have 3 parcels. Your house is on one. Like here, you got your house here, you got another lot here, you got another lot here, they're all adjacent. If all that is under an acre, you get a homestead over all of them. Now, originally it said up to 1 acre on the parcel. But for 2 years, they acknowledged that it was up to 1 acre. They ignored the word parcel, and when it came up as a dispute and lawsuit, they just amended the law and so they took away the word parcel. So we've seen it over and over. So like you said in your presentation, that in the PowerPoint, that you get to oversee libraries and townships. No, that's one interpretation of it. The interpretation is they have to come to you to ask you to say, we want lit.
Right.
Not that you deal with their budget, not that you approve their budget. It's a matter of, can we have lit? And the current law was that you do it for one, you do it for all. But now the other interpretation is, if a township doesn't want their money, then you as a county get to keep it. Is again one interpretation. The other interpretation is, you do it for one, you do it for all, and the state tells you how much money goes to each one because it's supposed to be based on population. Where I think you gave copies of all this. When it comes to your public safety and your economic development, and the cities and the towns get a portion of it, and you do, but none of the libraries, none of the townships, only cities and towns, and you get that. They originally told you it's based on population. Lie. No, it's based on population, but also their budgets. So if someone's out of control and makes a big budget, that factors in, they get more money. I got a spreadsheet years ago when Fred Van Dorf was at the DLGF. Now he's at State Auditor's Office. I don't use the other term, comptroller or something or other. And I saw the math. Now he sent it to me and says, is this what you're looking for? And I said, well, it's more than I was really looking for, but yeah, it's wonderful. He says, then here, you got to send a request, a public, what's that? Yeah, public access request. So he gave me the form to fill out, and I sent it to him. He says, okay, now officially I sent you that afterwards. Because I didn't know that it existed. How could I ask for it? But I saw it, and the math was based on not just population, but also budgets. So I said, that's the problem is.
Are you referencing the 3,500 population number that they talk about for being able to do their own lit?
Okay, that goes in, you were talking about townships and libraries. Now let's go back, now we'll go down to towns. At 3,500 or more, which is.
You can just do your own lit.
They can do their own lit.
Yeah.
And they're in control of it, up to 1.2. Just as you as a
1.2%,
county government,
yeah.
you can do up to 1.2. The libraries in the township you talked about is up to 0.2. Now, it's countywide, but the towns are not. They're within the geographic of their, see, one interpretation was it's based on the whole county, and then you figure out the population. I said, no, that's why they had $780 million to upgrade the Department of Revenue software so that me, as a business, when I log in, I no longer just pick Delaware County for me and my guy Greg. See, Greg, I can throw a stone in his house, but he's in the city. So what's going to happen is he's going to have a 1.2, for argument's sake, he has a 1.2 in 2 years, a 1.2 rate for the city of Muncie, but he also has 1.2 for the county, so his tax rate is 2.4. Where I live outside the city, I only have a 1.2. So now, I've got it when I do my taxes for withholdings, I got to report that he's in the city limits and I'm not. So there's different rates. Now, as a county, like I said, you can go up to 0.2 for the townships and the libraries, but you can also go up to 0.4 for EMS and fire territories. Now, you say you don't have fire territories, it doesn't mean that later on, based on the laws, that you can create fire territories.
But for a small county like Wells County, that would be nearly impossible because our centralized population would be Bluffton, which gets factored out of that 0.4% rate. Therefore, we wouldn't even have enough resources at 0.4 to make that work. Is that correct?
Again, I don't know your math here, your population, everything, but that's my point. The EMS, oh, by the way, you add the 0.4 and the 0.2 and the 1.2, adds up to 1.8, but then they put a restriction that you can only go up to 1.7.
1.7, yeah.
And then with the city at 1.2, therefore you get a 2.9. So your county cannot be more than 2.9. Currently, you're at 2.1. Now, over the phone before the meeting today, I told her, I said, you're the 5th county just in the last, not Friday, basically Monday. I've been on the phone or in person at counties talking about this. Your translation of 2.1% tax rate would actually be a 0.8 currently. If today for next year went into place and you had a 1.2 capability, the money you're getting currently would only be a 0.8. Yesterday, when I left Washington County, Little Salem, Indiana, down in Sticksville, nobody around, theirs would be a 1.15. So they're already almost maxed out. An hour before I came here, I was on the phone with Owen County, Spencer, Indiana. Theirs would be a 1.82, beyond the limit. They have a 2.5% rate. Of that 2.5% rate, 1.85 is the county government. They're going to have to cut a third of their income tax.
So if the most that you're talking about here between city, the maximum amount was 2.9, but you can't go over 2.4, right?
You, as a county, cannot go over 1.2.
1.2, but in aggregate, what was the aggregate amount that, I know you guys are 2.9 including the city, but what I guess what I'm getting at is if the city goes to their max right away, then we're going to be limited on how high we can go.
1.2.
Okay, so there's no.
You have nothing to do with
So there's not, because that was one of the issues some cities were bringing up, is that, am I in competition with the county now to where I better raise mine before they do?
No.
Okay.
There is no connection between any of you anymore.
Okay.
It's all independent. So 3,500 and above, Bluffton here can do their own thing. They can go max or they can go anywhere. You, like I said, to get what you have now would be a 0.8.
Okay.
So you have 0.8 all the way up to 0.12 of potential growth in years to come. Where like I said, Owen County,
It's already over.
they're way over.
Yeah.
Washington is almost at the limit. They have no idea what they're going to do now. You, out of the last 6 counties in less than 7 days here, as I told Lisa, you're fantastic.
Because we're
Whether
fiscally
you believe it or
responsible.
not, you are doing fantastic compared to most, and as I said, I have 64 county. I haven't hit it, and I can get statistics all day long.
Okay.
So well in that I can start out, and if you need justification, I'll get into that. My attitude is you have your property tax relief at .14. It generates $1,273,000 roughly. There's no need for it anymore. In 2 years, it's gone away anyways. But literally, you do not need to be given property income taxes to bills.
So that finally is going to go away in 2 years, no matter what.
Absolutely, it's gone.
Because I know we've been dealing with the fact it's going to go away, and it hadn't yet, but 2 years it is gone and done.
Yeah, and
Okay.
for some of my conversations with the senator, they originally were going to do it next year. They were just going to cut it off. I said, you understand I have so many county data, and some of those are the donut around Indianapolis. And he says, yeah, I know. I said, you're trying to look good, you're trying to give homeowners better bills. You cut that off next year,
Yeah, it's just going to go.
you will not have a career as senator. because-
The relief won't be felt.
No, it'd be the other way. They'd
Right.
be paying more taxes.
Yeah.
And it would take, in their case, 2 years because Morgan County has enormous amount of homestead-only property tax relief. You have rentals and homesteads, mostly homestead, here in this county. But again, it's a joke of an amount of 1.4. Every county that I deal with that had less than 0.5, I've instructed them, my opinion is get rid of it right now. The ones that are above 0.5, like Grant County, 1%, $15 million. I said, why don't you step it down? Step it down 40% for next year, another 35 or 40 the next year, and the state's going to take it away anyways. Otherwise, you're going to get bam with $15 million of loss in your entire county government. You're looking at yourself $2 million when you do your budgets. You don't have $2 million. Now, if you took out 600, 700,000 this year, you can slowly work your way into it.
It's like half this year, half next year, give or
Yeah.
take.
Yeah, no, they decided no. We don't believe they're really going to take it away. Fine, it's SB1. It's written, it's signed, sealed and delivered.
That's what, okay.
If anything, they're going to escalate it because my conversations was you need to step it down or you just give it a cutoff for the counties can step it down. And they asked me when I've had a dozen conversations with the senator, like, have you got answers for me yet? About every 2 weeks. 10 weeks later, 5, 6, 7 conversations, never any answers. He said, what's your answers about, are the counties looking at what you're doing? I said, if they're below 0.5%, yeah, they're getting rid of it. Yeah, but what about the ones higher? And I said, no, they don't believe you're going to do it. He said, we should have just done it then.
Yeah.
So, as for your small towns, 3,500 or less, again, they have to come to you and decide, as a group or individual, will you fund us and let us have a 1.2%, up to 1.2% rate? Again.
So the cities have to come to us to ask for that, the 1.2?
Yeah, and it's totally up to you whether you give it to the libraries in the townships or the little towns.
So,
You, the council, decide that.
so in a way, if we don't like what they're doing,
See, now you understand.
That's where the problem lies.
That you control things.
that was why the impression was given
Control the
that,
one arm to say, well, if you're not going to do this, we're not going to do that for you if you don't do this over here.
okay.
Yes. I assume you're grinning the same way. In a way, you have control over them in one way. Now, if they find a way that they can run their budgets through property taxes, they don't need lit, then they're going to take a flying leap. Because they don't need your lit. When they finally figure out, when they get the paperwork from the state and find out this little town, yeah, they're going to get, let's take one of your little towns. VERA?
Veracruz? Yeah.
get less than $3,000. But yet when they get the math and all the filings and they find out that it's not based on population, it's based on income. And maybe they only get $500 then because there's nobody there. They're all retirees and there's no income tax to collect.
Yeah.
Isn't that the irony? It's no longer based on budgets. It's not based on population. It's based on the revenue
Number.
reported to the Department of Revenue. So maybe Bluffton here won't be getting as much money as they think they are. You, the beauty part, county government will get what you've been getting because it's based on income tax by rate. You're the only one I can guarantee that's not going to change. That's why the .8, the only factor I don't know that Lisa and I talked about was your stabilization fund, which they're going to try to not phase out, empty out.
Spend it,
Empty
yeah.
I think that was their translation, my translation, empty it out in the next 2 years so that when the 2028 comes along, there is no stabilization fund, there is no levy freeze. That rate is gone and all the money in there is gone. The question is how much were you actually using from that to, when I factored in .8, was it enough to make you .85 or .9?
Right.
You know,
Was there balance, is there a lot of balances in those stabilization funds
Got
still?
on the county.
Ours has over.
Oh, we did, yeah, I was gonna say, I knew we did.
Yeah, but the problem is that stabilization fund, like Wabash found out, is whoever yells and screams and has good documentation, as in libraries, townships, anyone can grab that money. It's just a pool of money. How many times have they told you, it's just a pool of money? But you had the, I don't know the right word, but originally everyone had the concept, all your units here thought that you had to approve things. In Wabash, they found from the state years ago, because the township got a new fire truck. They said, when the county council said, you gotta get approval from us, you can't use that. No, we got with the state, and we give them the paperwork. We got a new fire truck, because it's just a pool of money. And they blew through all their stabilization fund long ago. They had none, and they went into the red. The only one worse than that was Carroll County. They've been in the red for 5 or 6 years. Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I don't care to go there. I
No, I won't ask because I could take all night again.
I know. So anyways, the reasoning, if you ask, why would I want you to, one, they don't need the credits. One, you're not hitting caps to speak of.
Right.
Again, you've done so well in your county, and that you've kept all your spending down, not just you county government, overall. Therefore, you're not really hitting caps to speak of. So the 2%, you're getting 2.5%. So your farmers, any of you farmers? Oh, that's unusual. Okay. Bottom line is your farmers are getting 2.4%, I think, of lit money. Well, next year they're going to get 6% right off the top of a deduction, cap 2. Rentals, farmland, mobile homes, nursing homes, all get a deduction now. There's no filing, it's cap 2, so they get 6%. In 5 years, they get 33.7%. Homesteads used to be 60%. So you take a $100,000 home, you get up to $48,000 now. It used to be $45,000. They added the mortgage in. They got rid of the mortgage itself. Now they said they didn't. They just upped it, but it's the same. 45 and 3 is 48. So you used to get $48,000 deduction on a $100,000 home. Well, now there's no percentages. The homestead is ingrained in our system before the turn of the century. There are so many laws involved in it, they decided they didn't want to touch it, so he's going to phase it out and get rid of it. Where the supplemental was only supposed to last 3 years when they phased in caps. But through normal government, it slipped through the cracks, and we've been stuck with it for 18 years now. So there's no laws to it. So they can, on a whim, change it anytime they want. So what they're doing is next year there's a flat $48,000 deduction. It's not 60%. So you take a $50,000 home, you get $48,000 off. As opposed to before. I'm not done yet. You're going to laugh at this one. 48,000, where before we only got 30,000. 60 times 50 is $30,000 deduction, so there's $20,000 left. The old way. Next year, it's 48,000, so now you got $2,000 left. Now, the supplemental deduction was at 35, went to 40. This year went to 37.5. It's supposed to go back to 35. No, they jacked it back up to 40 next year. So the 40% times the $2,000, another $800 off. So now the net AV on a $50,000 home, you're thinking is $1,200, right? No, they have a third option here, or a third requirement. You can't have more than 75% of a deduction, so you gotta jack it back up to $12,500. And you think that, you know, you are still working through that deal about that money. At least you're trying to work through it. They actually put this craziness in the law, and they have no idea how it all works. So now.
So is that up to the assessor's office to track all this?
No, they have nothing to do with it. They're just assessing. They just rolled them, thing
So-
to the auditor's office. The auditor's office software
Or auditors.
is not being modified.
I'm an auditor, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I'm an auditor.
No, they rely on, in your case, Lau.
You're retiring at the end. She's done coming up.
She is relying on, in your case, Lau. But I deal with Lau and MVP and Xsoft. None of them are touching their software at this point because they haven't got any answers either. So they're not going to waste time modifying their program because I gave them the 20 questions too. And I think you're the second one I sent it to after I sent it to Tony, president of the Artists Association. Oh, you got it there. Good. Did you give it to them too?
I did.
Okay.
That's all right.
I mean, I thought those really easy questions. And someone said 20 questions. I said, you know, it never even dawned on me that I actually made it 20 questions, you know. The point is, the homestead is already going to get more deductions. So your net AV is going down. I already said there's a new deduction of 6%. It's going down. But the law of 1996 or 7, I mean, literally go back that far, that your guaranteed of the money, gross amount that you got this year, that is a guarantee in the law for over 30 years. And the 3.5, I guess, maybe 4, they're still debating on that, your growth next year, last thing I heard.
Growth
I
quotient,
got the letter.
You did?
it is 4.
It's 4, isn't it?
I got it
When did it come out?
last week or?
Oh, okay, there, see? I've been so busy. It was, at one point,
growth
they
quotient
had it was
4?
going to be 3.5. Fine, let's go with 4, because originally they said 4, and they started wavering. Though they have occasionally thrown out an addendum to that later and said, oh, we were mistaken. But right now, let's go with 4. But it's no longer higher than that, it's 4. So, you know, the problem is software is not going to be available to figure out your net AVs at best by the end of this month. More likely to the middle to the end of August. And what are you trying to do? Budget, aren't you? With no net AVs. So I'm going to try to get you net AVs based on, I'm going to be pessimistic about it and do it the way I'm assuming my 20 questions are going to be answered. The example that I can tell you is you have a home, $100,000 home, real property. You get the $48,000 and the supplemental, and if you're a veteran, you get a veteran's deduction. On the other hand, you live in a mobile home. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to rip you off. You only get 50%. You do get the supplemental, but you don't get a veteran's deduction at all because the law says on a mobile home, only half the money. And that's one of the questions I put to them. Are you finally going to be fair to the vets and the poor people who live in mobile homes? At this point, they haven't been able to answer it. Well, they try to rewrite everything to say cap 1, cap 2, cap 3, not homestead this or homestead that or mobile home this or you know, that was cap 1. Cap 1 meant that it is, you know, a homestead. But then again, like I said, on that credit, is it the homestead flag or is it the credit of the 10%? So,
And this is for 2026.
yes,
Right.
for next
Yeah,
year.
coming up.
Yeah.
We're talking about how to do
Yeah, how
bills next
fast.
year they can't answer questions on.
And at what point do we have to let them know if we need to adjust lit?
We have to get started on.
I believe you are a Cadgett County, so you control everything in your county government, right?
Yes.
Okay, therefore, honestly,
Is it October, the deadline?
yeah, at the end of October, but my attitude is, do it now. You know, either.
We don't know the amount.
Huh?
Not knowing the amount would be the,
No, you just, in your case, the only thing I would change is just do away with your property tax relief of .14, and you take a 2.1 down to 1.96. You're gonna give
That'd be enough.
people's paycheck. That's one option.
okay.
I was talking to Lisa, all your other funds, your corrections correctional rehab, jail fund is doing nice.
Yeah.
You don't need any more money. Your 911, you're doing fine. You don't need any more money. Your public safety, you don't need any more money. The question is, EMS, you're doing fine, though, that was the only one I remember now.
There's a caveat on the EMS one coming up.
Starting to pull on the principal instead of.
It's going to run out of money in a few years.
Given time, you will run out.
Yep.
So, wait a minute. Therefore, you've got $1,273,000 that, doing with property tax relief, you got $1.2 million. The question
About
is,
the budget for
do you just
EMS.
go it over for 1 year or 2 years? Because in 2 years, in 2028, it's gone.
It's gone anyway.
It's gone anyway, so do you rack up $2.5 million in your EMS and squirrel it away? Do a non-reverting fund that you can't use it for something else because someone sees the money, wants to grab it?
Well, because also the other caveat in there is with those credits, right, is that if it's not put into a specified fund like that, it's shared between all county.
EMS isn't.
I know EMS isn't, but
right off the top, it goes to you.
Right, but if we don't, then it gets dispersed among
If you
the
do it
other.
into shares, which
Exactly.
I tell all Ken, don't put it into shares.
Yeah, that's what,
Townships and libraries don't need it very much
Right.
at all.
especially with the looming need that we know with
Public
EMS.
Safety, economic development, those two only cities and towns and county government.
Okay,
Otherwise, the one that helps the county is, again, 911 and EMS are the only two that matter to you. And as you said, EMS is the only one. And at that point, you could always just drop it down to 2 and you instead of .14, you just make your county rate at 2% and the .1, which is 900,000 or 1.8 million over.
go from .14 down to 1 and go up to 2 on lit.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
EMS, it'd be up by .1, so it'd be 1 point, you'd be reversing it.
Okay.
PTRC is .14, and you got .04. You move that to .14, zero this
Zero out.
out, and your rate now is at 2% because you only dropped it by
Okay.
.1.
Okay. That would make us pretty good shape.
And that way, your EMS now has money for 2 years, and then it's gone. Now, if you went and saw the PowerPoint presentation or any of those things, they're telling you, all these buckets are gone. None of those exist. Technically, they're right. It's going to drop into a fund that you don't have right now, but they're putting the financials, they're going to call.
Money would still have to go somewhere.
Miscellaneous
Right.
lit revenue. The state's going to have you drop it into a fund.
Okay.
You can't pay, you can't do anything out. It's come into there. Now, you as a council then have to divvy that up. And instead of calling it economic development, PSAP, buckets, you are familiar with fund numbers. In my case, I know 1158 is general drain improvement, and 1159 is health department. You can rattle off all day long different funds. Point is, you as a council decide all your lit money, what fund it's going to go into. So
Okay.
yes, when you went to the PowerPoint presentation, yeah, all those buckets are gone. Yeah, all right, they translate into fund numbers. Because you have to allocate all but a joke of you got at least something there because of mistakes.
After 2 years, we could allocate that to the fund number that would be EMS or something.
In 2 years, yeah, you
So
allocate.
we could do it that way down the
Yeah.
line. Okay.
So technically, some of the counties had a limit of .2 or .25 for the jail. Technically, no, there is in 2 years, it's just money lit that you, as a council, majority rules of where to stick it into what funds. But there is no limit anymore.
Which is that added responsibility of council going forward.
Yes.
Seems like
Now,
it's,
economic development, though, oops, I'm sorry, commissioners have, because there is no bucket cup seated anymore. It's, again, lit money dropped in, and you decide whether you want to put it into whatever fund. It's no longer just a seated fund that the commissioners get to decide what to do with. That's gone. So, yeah, that went over real well with the commissioners.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
We have a commissioner
Yeah,
here?
you're right there.
yeah.
Okay.
That's why we keep looking at him.
I thought something was
Just kind of, we're kind of taking some of the wind out of their sails a little bit.
So, yes, it's massive changes, and by the way, they're going to change it next year anyways, because no one liked what they had. And this is directly from Travis Holman and the senator I'm working with, and the governor on the radio, saying, no, we're going to change. I already have a long list because they didn't do what I wanted. And they said, well, we couldn't do what he wanted because, it was going to be disastrous. So now, the bottom line is, it's always going to hurt you. They didn't do anything to help county government. So one of the things was they could end up escalating the supplemental from, like I said, 40%, 47. Bottom line, homestead deduction, or supplemental deduction is going to go to 66.7% in 5 years from now. And the homestead goes down to nothing and it's gone. But originally it was 48,000 and 35% supplemental. And if you have a 600,000 or more, then you got an extra 25%. But it was never 66.7. So homeowners, and then at the very end, again, I talked about the 10% up to $300. That's not real money. Your bill was $1,000. Oh, wait a minute, we'll give it 10%. That's $100 off. But you don't get 100. Half my county auditors and a few council members says, oh, so the state's going to send us that credit money. I said, will you please wake up?
Wouldn't hold your breath on that, yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. The state gave up, 14, 15 years ago? They don't send credits back. The example is your license plate money. You send back every 6 months what they call SWETA, school welfare allocation tax. We go back 6, 8 years ago, every month you get lottery money, and then you send it back every 6 months as SWETA, school welfare tax. You used to be able to keep a good chunk, 8, 10% of that lottery money though. Now it's the other way around. You're sending back 8 to 10% more. Because they decided that, welfare's been going up and we need you to help pay for that. Even though they told you they were taking over welfare. But none of you knew that, but see, I have 75 counties. Again, I have all that data in front of me, and I've been noticing that it's been increasing for the 8 years now, that now there isn't any county that I'm aware of that isn't sending more of their miscellaneous revenue back. Because I asked Fred before he left DLGF, when you're at the DLGF, when you think about going back to the auditor's office, why don't you look into why does that still exist? Why we keep sending you money, or the old terminology was laundry money. It came in as lottery, we sent it back as SWETA.
Yeah.
So, again, if you don't look at all the nitty-gritty, you're actually sending money back to the state more often than you're getting
it back.
Yeah. So, bottom line is, there's no reason to have property tax credits, and you can make that announcement 10 days, 12, whatever it is, that the next council meeting, this is what we want to do, and you have your lawyer draw. Now, the catch is, the law now says you got to spell it all out, advertise what you're going to spell out, or what you're going to vote on. Where 5 years ago, I would come here and talk about it, you would then, I'll give you like 2 or 3 options, and during your meeting, which option did you go for? No, you got to spell it out now. You got to know what you're going to do, and advertise it so that you vote on it. Crazy. So,
Well, thanks, Darren, for all the
craziness.
and as much enlightenment as you can give at this point. It is good news. I hope the newspaper reports how fiscally sound we are as a county. So, yeah.
My intent is in the next 2 weeks, being that the assessor now has rolled, because Xsoft controls most of the counties in software, and I've been told by them that only 5 of the counties haven't rolled yet. So my intention is to take your roll data, and being the software tax system has no option to go, it's 60% and 35%, all the percent. They can't do it now, but you're going to want some NAVs, so I'm going to figure out how to get you, do it by hand. I'll pull your data one day. Now, if you start doing corrections, I'm sorry, I'm going to give it to you on, say, this day. Here's what it was on this day, a snapshot, just like you would anyways on a given day, and say, here's what it would be with all these, by the way, all the deductions. Any of you have geothermal, solar, wind power?
Geothermal.
Yeah. You had an increase, let's, for argument's sake, you both spent $20,000. Your assessment went up $20,000. Your deduction went away, by the way. So now your assessment's up by $20,000.
Do they depreciate that, by the way, if it's 20 years old? Because it's probably about...
Actually, the assessor appreciates those things. I know that because my sister has both.
Okay.
And when she filed, it was like $32,000, and now her assessment's like $47,000. Her house has gone up because of the geothermal and the solar panels on the roof. So even though you spent X amount, you got that deduction, no, it's actually way higher. So now, but at that point, you do get the 40% of supplemental on there. Anyways, I'm going to get you the best NAVs I can.
Okay.
With all those deductions going away, and then factor in a 4% growth on every unit of government, not just yours, but the schools, the townships, library, everything, so that I can see what that's going to do in the net result. See how many circuit breakers are going off, and then apply the $125 on blind disabled, $150 on senior citizens, and $150 on the senior citizens, but they also get the 10%. Which goes into the last thing I'll tell you about is you had seniors with zero bills. They kept talking about trying to get rid of those zero bills, they should be paying something. Now, some years within 1 year, next year, but up to 5 years, all your seniors are going to get a zero bill. The reason for it, you have, say, a $500 bill. Oh, wait a minute, they get $150 off because they're a senior. So now it's $350. But they get 10% off at $350, it's $35, so now it's $315.
Yeah.
Next year it's 2% of that, but then they get 150 again and 10% again, so now it's $300, it's down to 100 and some. So the third year, it's wiped away.
Wow.
So seniors, eventually in 5 years, when you get $1,000.
Back to zero.
Seniors are going to be a zero bill. So how many of you don't live in a town? They're out in the sticks. So your rates are probably 1.2 to 1.6 or down there, nothing. You're not anywhere close to being a cap. Within the next 3 to 5 years, you will be easily at 2%, even 3%. Because Bluffton here will probably be at 4, 5, or 6%. Because in 2 years, next year, the Senate bill reinstated the veterans deduction. Instead of giving them a credit, they got back to the deduction. But it also wiped away the $1 million business personal property. It's still at $80,000 next year. But in 2027, it goes to $2 million. What that means is, say you had 500 business personal properties bills, you're going to have maybe 40, because it takes $2 million to even have to worry about filing. So homestead down, cap 2 down, business personal property down, rates,
Right.
they're like that because the law in 1996 or 7 says you're still entitled to the gross amount. The catch is the gross amount. They factor in all the credits and the circuit breakers.
Right.
You end up with a net.
So Darren, in 5 years, who's the big winner?
Being that they basically said they're going to flatline the assessments because they made mistakes in the cost tables. They aren't making a big PR deal about that, but the fact is the cost tables were wrong. So we're going to see basically a flat line, but then it's going to start going back up. With all the data, I've done some analysis, for the senator himself. He had a $600,000 home. Anyone above $150,000 really benefits. Even though they paved the way as thinking that it was for the poor, the lesser homes. No, it never was, never has been.
Well, the losers in this
houses, the bigger
obviously have got to
deductions.
be on the local income tax side, right?
What's that?
Is it more the burden's going to be on local income tax going forward, so...
Oh, yeah, you grow.
So the losers in this are going to be...
from income,
Right,
not from property.
so that's where the losers in this are going to be,
So if you're retired
it's going to be more on income.
and you're not earning income and you're in a $500,000 house,
You're capped out in 4 years.
You're in great shape.
Oh, if you're in the city limits, you're probably capped out in 2 years.
if you're working, you're young, and you have a house that's $150,000 or less, are you the big loser?
Under 150,000 again, yeah, the current law was within $500 to $800 difference of the assessment. So, yeah, the below $70,000 home, they did not win, no.
And they'll pay more in income tax.
If they're still working.
If they're working, right?
In your case, if they live in the city, oh, yeah, because you're going to be at 2%, and more than likely it's going to be at least 2 point. It's going to be at least 2, because if you go with a 0.8, and Bluffton decides that they want, maybe the first year they'll go with mathematically, the idea would be a 0.6. When they realize, oh crap, with the numbers they got from the state, no, we're going to have to do it to 0.9. The third year, oh crap, we just maxed out at 1.2.
Right.
Yours, though, your numbers are solid. Yours, But at that point, it'd be a 2%, but you can see eventually in 5, 6 years, yeah, it's going to be 2.4 to 2.9.
Right.
Because people are going to be yelling for money.
And then just one last question for time's sake, but obviously it's capped at 3,500 for a city.
Yeah.
So census data, I looked and it may have been old, but they had all seen it 3,300 in the last, I mean, is that what it's going to be based off as the last census reporting
Yes.
data?
Yes.
Because they probably will be 3,500 coming up to where they will be able to institute their own local income tax then. So we have one city that's on the border of 3,500.
When's the next census?
2030.
Yeah, so that's, by the time everything's
Right.
kicked in.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. A lot could change between now and then, too. So I won't worry about that. Well, thank you, Darren, and look forward to budgeting.
It's going to encourage people to move out of city limits because then they won't
Yeah.
pay city taxes.
Certainly.
No, you're right, yeah.
Oh, it's simple.
Definitely, yeah.
Think about 1 to 1.5%,
Yeah.
you know, won't have to pay.
Yeah, yeah.
And if that's not enough, they'll just increase it.
Yeah, Leon?
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Of a slightly different nature. I serve on the Wells County Rural Sewage District Board, and when it comes to new projects, we rely heavily on the Indiana Finance Authority, the state revolving fund for grant money, or any changes in the future. as far
I
as
know
that?
lit and I know property taxes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Uh,
I thought I'd ask.
Oh, no, the only question that's dumb is the one you sat there and didn't ask. But yeah, income taxes and property taxes, I'm very good at. Okay. Because I have the data at my fingertips.
I can tell.
Well, thank you so much, Darren, I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you at some point again. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Darren.
All right, so the last one on the agenda is the budget, right? So it's just more just informational? What are you supposed to do with it?
Well, I need you to approve these
Oh,
so that,
this is for the, so we can put it in the budget? Okay, sorry, it's been a long night.
that's okay.
So the one thing that we need to do is, in your packets is the county council's budget. We need to go ahead and approve this so that it goes into the budget books. Then obviously at budget time, we'll tweak it however we wanted to. Since we did not do, and we always do raises later, I just had Lisa flatline the raises for now. We'll do raises obviously when it comes budget time. So just for right now, I left the raise. Does that make sense? When we do our budgets today, the budget, Steve, we always approve a raise or not. For now, I said no raise. And if we meet and we decide that we want to do a 3% or 5%, we can make that decision then. Just for now, I put down 0. So, because we have to prove something that goes in our budget books, that when we do our budgeting,
That's why I would
Okay.
think you'd do it the other way around. You cut 3%, and then if you decided to cut it, then you'd cut it then.
or we could raise it, I mean, usually, what do we know, have we normally done? I thought we normally did 0, and then we've,
Mixed bag. You've done it all different kinds of
You can do it either way,
Yeah.
but
I would leave it at, let's just leave it at 0, and then if we decide we want to give ourselves a 3 or whatever % raise, we could do that when we do our budget, depending on what, I didn't want to put a raise in here and then find out we can only afford to do county employees 2 and we give ourselves 3. So I just thought if we start off at 0, we can always adjust it higher when we do our budget, was what I was thinking.
Can you go higher?
can you do that?
You can, as long as you advertise high enough, and some departments ask for 5%,
Right,
some ask
we'll
for
get-
7, but
yeah, we-
yes, it'll all, unless you give a 10% raise, then it might be a problem.
I don't think we're going to 10, so.
Well,
Cut somewhere
with
else.
extra responsibilities coming, they want to have to go way higher.
I'll leave that for the next president, Steve, if you're willing to go for that, but, so anyway, we can make those adjustments later. The other one that we added some more money to, let me get over to it, because you have the rainy day fund. I went ahead and budgeted because we had the extra resources to do it, was another $250 into a rainy day fund. Lisa and I went over the numbers and felt like that was a comfortable number for rainy day. Again, as we do our budgets, we can always change that when the numbers become clearer when we're doing our budgeting. So these are just a framework like we get from all other county agencies that we then will adjust more so if we want to when we do the actual budget. So most of it seems straightforward, other than the raise in the rainy day amount, but it felt like the rainy day amount was a comfortable number.
Is rainy day in this information?
Yeah, it's on page 4 at the bottom. It's Fund 1186.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got you.
So any other questions regarding the proposed budget? What's that? Yeah. Just want to make sure everybody has a chance to glance at it. If not, do I have a motion to approve the budget projection for the county council?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Vicki. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That concludes the meeting, doesn't it?
Do we have a pay resolution?
We already did that with the sheriff's department. So I sped that up and did it when the sheriff was here so he could hear that we did it.
So when would we, with Darren's recommendation, do what he asked? Or vote to remove the .14?
When we do our budget.
At budget
Yeah.
time, that's when we.
Well, we do,
We
we,
can start at any time. I mean, we can start it next, has to be totally finished by October. So you have to have a.
There has to be a hearing on it, right?
Public
Yeah,
hearing.
public hearing and everything on it.
It takes a bit.
So do you get that ball rolling?
yes. But what I would like to do is, let's see, August, at our August meeting, everybody kind of think about, and we'll run the numbers, see what the impact's going to be, what we do with it, so we have more about where the money's going to go. And then as a body, at our August meeting, we can then set the process for getting rid of or eliminating those credits.
I like this idea, send it to the EMS, because that funds run out.
That's where it's going to need to go. But I'd like to get the firm numbers for everybody, and then we could do it in August, and we could do the public hearing, and we'll move on that in September. Now gives us enough time to get it
That would
done.
be what's left of the credits, right?
That will be what's left of the credits. Yep. So that'll help solve EMS for a while.
You know, just push it down the road a little.
Yep.
Until soon.
So. Anything else for the greater good? All right. Thanks, everybody, for the long meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I never usually do one, but do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thanks, everybody. All in favor? Aye.
Third. Aye. I did.
You want to sign this?
Limits, and then they can get the income tax. If people move out.
If they catch it and realize we're paying, yeah. It'll be a long, it'll be a cycle or two. But it's all based upon income, you know, if you're not working, you don't care. Right.
On down there.
Hell, I haven't worked for 80 years, Stay in town.
Are you gonna need the charger?
Yeah, I was gonna leave that. That's all good. Yeah?
Here, send it to Brandon.
I want to make sure.
Mark your calendar.
I made a joke.
Is this the only thing that's really?
Thanks.
Yeah, so I got sprayed weeds the other day. I was gonna stop and give you a hand, but I didn't.
Okay. Where's the other? Oh, shoot. Hey, don't leave. Hey, guys, yeah, don't leave yet. There you go. Hey, Todd, don't leave yet.
Okay. Scott already signed.
Scott, don't leave yet.
Yeah, I want to get additional. I sent the other one back to you.
Can't go pee.